In the early 1950s, a small rural town in the state of Kansas lived its quiet, ordinary life until that night. A warm summer evening that would soon mark the beginning of one of the strangest mysteries in American history. A call came into the local police station. A terrified man claimed he'd seen something in the sky, something he'd never seen before. Minutes later, the station was flooded with dozens of calls from other residents, all describing the same terrifying sight. The small town didn't have the resources to handle such a situation, so the report was escalated to a nearby city, which immediately sent a patrol to investigate. But when the patrol arrived, they didn't find what they expected. In fact, they didn't find the town at all. The entire town of Ashley and every person living in it had vanished completely off the face of the earth. Welcome! Today we uncover the chilling mystery behind the disappearance of Ashley, Kansas. Gabriel had mentioned several times to his friends that he'd been hearing strange noises coming from an unknown source near the edge of the town. When he started talking to others, he discovered that he wasn't the only one. Some people had also been hearing those same eerie sounds, and others claimed they had seen strange lights appearing suddenly in the middle of the night, only to vanish without a trace. Then, one day, specifically on Friday, August 8th, Gabriel called the town's administrative office at exactly 7:13 p.m. to report something unbelievable that he had just witnessed in the sky, a strange black opening hovering directly above the town. It had appeared suddenly, nothing was coming out of it, and nothing was going in. It was simply either silent, dark, and terrifying. Because the report sounded absurd, the clerk on duty didn't believe a single word Gabriel said. He assumed Gabriel was drunk or hallucinating, told him to stop drinking, and hung up on him. But only a few minutes later, the phone started ringing again and again and again. Dozens of calls poured in from the citizens of Ashley, all describing the exact same thing Gabriel had reported. A massive black hole in the middle of the sky, a terrifying sight unlike anything anyone had ever seen before, as if the sky itself had been torn apart. When the number of reports kept increasing, the clerk began to realize that Gabriel's call wasn't some drunken nonsense. Something truly serious was happening. He didn't know what to do or who to call. Panic spread among the office staff, and eventually, several employees stepped outside to see for themselves. And what they saw left them speechless. Right above them, a pitch black rift suspended in the sky, so real, so unnatural, that for a moment they forgot to breathe. They instantly understood this was far beyond anything they could handle. After all, they were just a small town office in a quiet rural place with barely 700 residents. But none of them could possibly imagine that this was only the beginning of Ashley's disappearance. Realizing the situation was getting out of hand, the officials of Ashley decided to escalate the matter to the nearby town of Hayes, a slightly larger community that often assisted them with security issues. Although Hayes was still a small town, it was better equipped, and it had its own local police force. Ashley's administrators contacted them immediately, explaining all the strange reports they had received and that they had gone out themselves to verify what people were seeing. They confirmed that the black opening in the sky was real and visible above the town. But the officials in Hayes didn't believe a word of it. The distance between the two towns wasn't far, and when they looked toward Ashley's direction from their own sky, they couldn't see anything unusual. No lights, no rift, no signs of anything out of the ordinary, and they hadn't received any strange calls from their own citizens either. However, as the calls from Ashley continued, and as the town's officials insisted that what they were witnessing was real, Hayes police began to take the matter a little more seriously. They decided to send one of their own officers to investigate. That officer was Patrol Sergeant Alan Mace. The next morning, at exactly 7:54 a.m., Alan left the Hayes Police Department and started driving toward Ashley, taking the only road that connected the two towns. It was a simple, straight highway, no turns, no intersections, no side paths. Everyone who lived in Hayes knew it well. But that morning, something strange happened. Alan had been driving for far longer than usual, and yet the road just kept stretching on endlessly. He glanced around, confused he should have reached Ashley by now, but the road never seemed to end. Then, suddenly, he realized he was back in Hayes. It made no sense. The road between the two towns was straight and flat, no curves, no exits, no way to turn around accidentally. It was impossible to get lost. Still, Alan thought maybe he just lost focus. So he tried again. He got back on the same road, and after driving for miles, he ended up in Hayes again. That's when he knew something was terribly wrong. Alan returned to the police station and filed an urgent report describing what had happened. Based on his account, the department decided to send a full convoy, 7 patrol cars, to check it out themselves. They left Hayes at 9:15 a.m., heading straight toward Ashley. But what happened next defied all logic. Just like Alan, all 7 police cars ended up right back in Hayes. And while the officers were struggling to make sense of what was happening, the phone lines in Ashley kept ringing nonstop. More calls, more panic, and with every new voice on the line, the reports became stranger than before. What the people of Ashley described next would change everything. All the calls coming from Ashley shared the same terrifying message. The strange black opening in the sky was getting bigger, much bigger, and darker than before. It was spreading, but since the police from Hayes still couldn't reach the town by any possible route, there was nothing they could really do. So they advised the residents to stay inside their homes, lock their doors, and wait until the authorities figured out how to deal with the situation. Of course, they didn't tell the townspeople that they themselves couldn't even reach Ashley. They didn't want to cause more panic. The officers gathered together and spread out maps on the table, searching desperately for any alternative road that might lead into Ashley, but there wasn't one. There was only a single road leading in or out of the town, and that road no longer led anywhere. That same day at 6:17 p.m., the Hayes Police Department received another call, this time from a woman named Ellen Cantor, a resident of Ashley. She reported that her neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Milton, and their children, Jeffrey and Brooke, had completely disappeared. According to Ellen, the Milton family had been terrified by what they saw in the sky. They decided to pack up their car and flee the town altogether. But once they left their house and drove off, no one ever saw them again. Their car was never spotted, and no one in Ashley saw them crossing the town's borders. Hayes police immediately tried to verify if anyone had come from Ashley's direction, but after questioning residents and checking every nearby road, they found nothing. No witnesses, no sign of the Miltons' vehicle. It was as if the family had simply vanished into thin air. The night passed, and the next morning, August 10th, at 7:30 a.m., the phones in Hayes began ringing again. This time, the callers from Ashley sounded even more terrified. They claimed the entire town had fallen into complete darkness. Not a single light, no sunrise, nothing but endless night. When the officers told them, "Ma'am, it's 7:30 in the morning. The sun is up," the terrified voices on the other end replied, "No, it hasn't been daylight since last night." That's when the Hayes Police Department decided they had no choice left. They needed to reach the town no matter what. A helicopter was dispatched toward Ashley, hoping that visibility from the air would give them a better view. The crew took off and headed straight for the coordinates of the missing town, but once again, nothing. They reached the exact location where Ashley should have been and saw nothing but empty land. No buildings, no people, no trace that a town had ever existed there. And that's how things remained. Until the afternoon of August 11th, when something happened that would finally reveal the horrifying truth behind Ashley's disappearance. And then something happened that made the entire case take a far darker and much stranger turn. A woman named Phoebe Danielewski, a resident of Ashley, called the Hayes Police Department in tears. She reported that her daughter, Erica, was talking to her father from behind their apartment door. Her father, who was supposedly standing outside in the pitch-black darkness that had swallowed the town for 4 days straight. The officers asked her, "What's strange about that? And why was your husband even outside in this situation? Didn't we tell everyone to stay indoors?" Phoebe's trembling voice broke as she replied, "Because my husband has been dead for 3 years." She explained that her husband had died in a car accident caused by a drunk driver both men killed instantly. And now her daughter was insisting on going outside because she wanted to be with them. That horrifying call was only the beginning. Within the next few hours, the Hayes Police Department received 329 calls from Ashley, all describing eerily similar situations. Parents reported their young children talking to people through their closed doors, people who had been dead for years, or complete strangers no one in the family recognized. The officers were stunned, but the real nightmare came the next day, August 12th. That morning, more than 400 calls flooded in from Ashley. Residents were screaming, crying, panicking because over 200 children had gone missing overnight. They had vanished from inside locked houses. No doors broken, no windows opened, no sign of forced entry. Parents swore they had locked every door and checked on their kids before sleeping, and yet by morning the children were gone, vanished as if they had simply melted into the air. It was the darkest day Ashley had ever known. Then came August 13th. At 5:19 p.m., the Hayes police received another call, this time from an elderly man named Scott Lunds. He said he was watching from his window and saw a massive fire rising from the southern edge of town. According to him, the flames were enormous, so bright they illuminated the entire city, piercing through the eternal darkness that had covered it for days. Within minutes, more calls came in, dozens of them people reporting the same glowing inferno. Some even claimed the light wasn't fire at all, but something descending from the sky itself, from the same black rift they had first seen on the night everything began. Yet strangely, no one outside Ashley, no one in nearby towns or on the highways reported seeing any fire at all. To the rest of the world, the sky above Ashley remained empty. Hours passed. At 12 o'clock midnight, another call came through from a man named Benjamin Endicott. He said the fire had grown so intense that the entire town was glowing like a river of light. Then suddenly the call cut off. The last thing Benjamin said before the line went dead was, "I see something coming from the south." He never had the chance to describe what it was. The fear, the chaos, and the unexplainable events continued through the night until finally at 9:47 p.m., the Hayes police received one last call. A call so terrifying it would mark the final chapter of the Ashley disappearance. And what they heard in that final call was beyond anything human imagination could ever comprehend. Department was the one who picked up the call that night. As soon as he answered, he heard a muffled, shaky voice. He introduced himself. "This is Officer Peter Welch from the Hayes Police Department." But there was no reply. He repeated himself, asking, "Can anyone hear me?" Then a weak, trembling female voice responded, "Yes. Yes, I can hear you." Peter immediately asked, "Who am I speaking to?" She replied, "My name is April. April Foster." It then started coughing, the kind of cough that tells you she was an old woman. In a broken voice, she said, "Please, help me." Peter tried to calm her down. "Ma'am, tell me what's happening." Her voice cracked as she screamed, "They came back yesterday." Peter, confused, asked her to explain, but before he could finish, she shouted louder, "They came back! All of them!" She began sobbing uncontrollably. Peter tried to steady his voice. "Who came back, April? Please tell me." Then, in a whisper filled with terror, she said, "All of them. Everyone who died. Everyone who disappeared. They came back. Last night. They came out of the fire." Peter froze. "Who came out of the fire?" April's next words chilled him to the bone. "Yesterday. I saw my son walking down the street. His body was burnt. He was walking." Peter thought she was describing a survivor of the fire until she continued, "My son died last year. I saw him yesterday." At that moment, Welch's hands began shaking. He asked, "Are you safe right now?" She whispered, "I'm hiding. Like everyone else. We're all hiding. We saw them coming from the fields. Some people, they opened their doors. They thought it was their loved ones coming back." Suddenly, Peter heard distant screams through the line. April's trembling voice came again. "I don't know what happened to them. Their houses are burning. I saw the flames. They're still inside." Then a silence. Peter shouted her name again, and again no response, until he suddenly heard glass shattering. April's terrified voice came back. "Something's in the house. Please, help me." Peter whispered, "Stay quiet. Don't make a sound." Then came the sound of a small child's voice. Faint, distant. "Mom, I'm here." The sound of slow footsteps grew louder. Closer. Then the child's voice again. "Mom, are you hiding from me?" "Where are you?" April's breathing became frantic, shaking, terrified. Peter tried to calm her, but then came the sound of laughter, a child's laughter, followed by a whisper. "Found you, Mom." April's screams filled the line, a crash chaos, and then the call went dead. That call was the last transmission ever received from the town of Ashley. After that, all contact was lost. At that dawn on August 17th, seismographs across Kansas recorded a massive 7.9 magnitude earthquake right where Ashley once stood. The U.S. Geological Survey officially confirmed that the epicenter of the earthquake was directly beneath what used to be the town of Ashley. And of course, a quake that strong didn't just affect Ashley, it shook every nearby town, including Hayes itself. Police units from Hayes were dispatched once again toward Ashley, but this time it was different. They didn't end up looping back to Hayes like before. This time, they actually made it. They reached the exact location where Ashley was supposed to be, and what they found defied all logic. The entire town was gone. And by gone, like, we don't just mean destroyed or burned down. We mean it completely erased. No houses, no streets, no trees, no signs of life, nothing. Just an enormous burning fissure in the ground, nearly 900 meters long and 450 meters wide, glowing from deep within the earth. It was as if Ashley had never existed. For 12 straight days, rescue teams searched the area, desperate to find any sign of the townspeople. But there was nothing. No remains, no debris, no traces of human existence at all. Finally, on August 29th, the Hayes Police Department officially declared the search a failure, but the horror didn't stop there. At 2:30 a.m. on August the 35th, another violent quake struck, the magnitude 7.5, originating from the exact same location beneath the burning fissure. When officers returned at dawn, what they saw left them speechless. The fissure itself was gone, completely vanished, as if the earth had sealed itself shut overnight. In shock and fear, the officers made a pact. No one would ever speak again about what happened to the cursed town of Ashley. Even though the story sounds unbelievable, there are no official records confirming any of it. The first mention of the Ashley incident appeared on the internet in April 2012 on the horror forum Creepypasta, a site known for fictional scary stories. It spread from there to Reddit, and later across dozens of websites. But when we searched for actual data, police reports, geological surveys, or historical records, we found nothing. The only earthquake near Kansas in that period occurred on April 9th, not August, and its epicenter was recorded near El Reno, Oklahoma, not anywhere close to Ashley. And the official U.S. map doesn't even list a town named Ashley in Kansas at all. Still, some people believe otherwise. One local resident from Hayes claimed he reviewed road maps from 1951, and there was no mention of a nearby town called Ashley. But here's where things get strange again. A collector of rare documents once claimed to possess a birth certificate from 1934, the mother's birthplace listed as Ashley, Kansas. So, what if Ashley really did exist? What if it was merged with another town and erased from modern records? Or, what if the name Ashley was just a distortion? A forgotten echo of another place? And then comes the real question. Was this story pure fiction or a buried truth the government didn't want the world to know? Maybe Ashley never existed, or maybe it did, and what happened there was too dark for history to remember. Either way, one thing's for sure. Some stories are meant to be forgotten. If you think you're brave enough to know what really happened, hit subscribe, because next time, we're diving even deeper into the unknown.